My heart was beating like a drum solo at a heavy metal concert. My hands were shaking so badly that I could barely hold the phone. What in the world? Is it some strange intruder creeping through my house in the middle of the night? Someone messing with me? Did I accidentally leave the front door unlocked? As I stared at the screen, fear turned to confusion, then to an overwhelming sense of dread. This wasn't normal. It wasn't something I'd ever experienced before. But what was it? And why was it happening now? When I finally managed to calm myself down enough to think rationally, I decided to investigate further. It turns out there is more to this story than meets the eye. So without further ado, let us dive into the mystery of what happened when I checked my security camera footage at 3 a.m. It was a cold winter's night. The kind of night where the wind howls like a hungry wolf and the snow falls in thick, heavy flakes that muffle all sound. I was snuggled up on the couch watching a movie, completely oblivious to the drama unfolding just outside my window. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. I reached for it and saw a notification from my home security app. It was a motion alert from my front door camera. A chill ran down my spine. Why would there be any movement at 3 a.m.? My family and I had been home all day, and we were the only ones who had access to our house. Plus, the security system was armed. It wouldn't let anyone in unless they had a passcode. And I was sure I hadn't given anyone access to the front door. I hesitated for a moment, my fingers hovering over the phone. Curiosity battled with common sense, telling me there was probably a logical explanation for this. Eventually, curiosity won. And with trembling hands, I clicked on the live feed. All I could see was the snow falling silently, blanketing the world in white. But as I watched, a dark shape began to emerge from the swirling snow. It was a man. Relief washed over me. It was just the delivery guy. He must have come to deliver my online shopping. I thought he might have used his phone to deactivate the security system, or perhaps he was one of those independent contractors that sometimes did deliveries and was unfamiliar with the system. But then he stopped. He looked up at the camera and waved. I froze. He didn't know he was being recorded. Who orders stuff at midnight, and why would he wave at the camera? Was he expecting to see a response? Had he known I'd be watching, as if reading my mind? The man suddenly lunged forward, his hand shooting out to grab the camera. In a panic, I quickly closed the live feed. Adrenaline surged through my body as I tried to figure out what to do next. Was he still there? Had he deactivated the alarm? Was he inside my house? I needed to check the rest of the footage. But when I went back to the app, I found that the rest of the footage from that night was missing. It was like someone had deliberately erased it. But who would do such a thing, and why? I knew I had to do something, but what? Should I call the police? Would it even make a difference? Or was this some elaborate prank by one of my friends? But who would do that, and why? My mind raced, trying to piece together the puzzle, but it was no use. The more I thought about it, the deeper into the rabbit hole I fell. I was desperate for answers. And that's when I remembered the doorbell camera. It was positioned to capture the entire porch and would have recorded everything the security camera did. It was my last hope. I rushed to the computer to access the doorbell camera footage. As the live feed started, my heart sank. The image on the screen was distorted and unclear. The wind was causing the tree branches to scrape against the glass, creating a terrible noise. I couldn't hear anything else, though. No voices, no footsteps, nothing. Just the wind. I tried to focus on the image, willing it to become clearer, and slowly it did. The wind seemed to die down, and the sound became muffled, as if under a blanket. Then I saw him. The same man from the security camera stood on my porch. He was tall and thin with long, messy hair and a scraggly beard. His eyes were hidden behind a pair of dark sunglasses, adding an air of mystery and intrigue to his appearance. But that's when things took a turn for the worse. He raised his hand, revealing a glint of metal. My blood ran cold. Was this the reason for the missing footage? Was this man responsible for erasing it? I wanted to run, to hide, but I couldn't move. I was frozen in fear. The man continued to stare at the camera, his face unreadable. I struggled to breathe as I watched him slowly reach out and press the doorbell. Then he turned away and walked off camera. Before I could process what I was seeing, the live feed cut out. I tried to reconnect, but it was no use. It was like the connection had been severed. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. This was beyond a prank. This was something sinister, something scary. As the seconds ticked by, my fear turned to anger. Who was this guy, and what did he want? Had he hacked into my security system just to mess with me? I had to know the truth. With a shaky hand, I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. As I waited for the operator to answer, my mind raced. What should I tell them? What would they do? I knew they wouldn't believe me if I told them about the missing footage or the man who had stared directly into my camera. So I decided to play it safe. I told them I had received threatening messages and someone was trying to break into my house. I could hear the sirens in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. I rushed to the front door and peeked through the peephole. I saw 3 police officers standing on my porch. They were tall and broad-shouldered, their faces grim. As they stepped inside, they began asking me questions. Where was the intruder? What had he said? What did he look like? I answered truthfully, hoping they would take me seriously, but I could see the doubt on their faces. They were polite but skeptical. One of the officers checked the security footage while the others searched the house. They found nothing. The officer who had been watching the footage shook his head. It was too blurry to make out any details. They couldn't see the man's face or get a good look at his clothes. After searching every room and finding nothing, they gave me a warning and left. I stood there for a long time, staring at the front door. The whole experience had been terrifying. I felt violated, as if someone had invaded my privacy and I had no one to blame. The police had dismissed my concerns, and the intruder was still out there. I knew I had to do something, but what? I couldn't rely on the police to catch him, nor could I keep living in fear. I had to take matters into my own hands. I decided to install a new security system, one that would capture clear images and never run out of storage. I wanted to know what was going on, and I wouldn't rest until I got answers. The days that followed were filled with tension. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Every time I heard a noise, my heart would race and I would jump at my own shadow. Sleep became a luxury I could no longer afford. Each night, I would lie in bed listening to the wind, waiting for the sound of breaking glass or the click of a door. But nothing happened. The silence was deafening, and it drove me crazy. I felt trapped in my own home, unable to relax or feel safe. Then, just when I was losing all hope, something happened. The doorbell camera captured movement on my porch. I rushed to the computer to check the live feed. The same man was standing on my porch, staring directly at the camera. This time, however, he wasn't alone. Beside him stood a woman with her back to the camera. She was tall and slender with long flowing hair. As I watched, she turned around. Her face was pale and drawn, her eyes hollow and lifeless. I gasped. I knew that face. It was the neighbor. The woman had been missing for weeks. What was she doing here? Why was she with this man? What? And what were they doing at my house? They began to walk towards the door, and I could see their faces clearly. The man was older than I had first thought, his face lined with wrinkles, and his eyes sunken in his skull. The woman, on the other hand, was young, no older than 20, her face free of any blemishes. But it was the way she walked that caught my attention. Her head was tilted at an unnatural angle, her eyes blank and unseeing. It was as if she were a puppet, dancing to the tune of her master. And I knew then that I was dealing with something sinister, something evil. I tried to shut off the camera, to pretend I hadn't seen anything, but it was too late. I had seen enough. I watched in horror as they reached the door and the man knocked. I could hear the sound of the knock through the camera, loud and insistent. It echoed through the house like a death knell. I wanted to scream, to run, to do anything but watch. But I couldn't. I was frozen in fear as the door opened slowly, revealing an empty hallway. The man and the woman exchanged a look, a silent conversation passing between them. Then they stepped inside. And that's when the screen went black. I waited, my heart pounding in my chest, for them to appear, but they didn't. The live feed was dead. Had they lost interest? Were they planning something more sinister? I didn't dare turn off the camera, so I sat there watching the black screen for hours. The sun began to rise, casting a faint glow over the horizon, and still I waited. Then, just as the first rays of sunlight touched my face, the screen flickered back to life. The man and the woman were gone. But what they left behind was even more terrifying. On the floor lay a single playing card, the Joker. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. What did it mean? Was it a threat? A warning? A calling card? I didn't know what to think. I felt a chill run down my spine. I had seen this card before, not in a deck of playing cards, but in my dreams. Every night I had been dreaming of the Joker, of his twisted grin and maniacal laughter. I had tried to ignore it, to brush it off as just a dream, but now I wasn't so sure. With shaking hands, I reached out to pick up the card. As my fingers brushed against it, a jolt of electricity shot through my arm. I recoiled in surprise. What was this card made of? It was cold, almost icy to the touch. And as I looked closer, I saw that it wasn't a picture of the Joker at all. It was a symbol I had seen in my dreams, a symbol that meant only one thing. I knew then that I was in danger, real danger. These people were not here to simply mess with me. They were after something I possessed, something powerful. But what? And why were they willing to go to such lengths to get it? I had to find out. As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting its warm glow over the neighborhood, I began to explore my house. I checked every room, every closet, every drawer, desperate to find whatever it was they were looking for. But I found nothing. I was stumped. What could it be? And where was it? Then I remembered. There was one place I hadn't checked yet, the attic. I climbed the creaky stairs and pushed open the door. The air was thick with dust and the smell of decay. As I moved boxes, I could feel their eyes on me, watching, waiting. But it was worth it. In the end, I found what I was looking for, a small wooden box hidden in the corner. I brought it downstairs and wiped off the dust. The box was old, its surface worn smooth by time. I hesitated for a moment, my fingers hovering over it. Should I open it? What if it was too late? I had no way of knowing what was inside, but I knew I had to find out. I lifted the lid and stared inside, and that's when I saw it. A single playing card, the Joker. But this was no ordinary card. As I reached out to take it, the card began to glow. I jumped back in surprise, but it was too late. The card had already activated, and a portal had opened behind me. I turned slowly and stared in disbelief. The portal was swirling with energy, pulling me towards it. I felt a tug on my arm, a sensation like being pulled by an invisible force. But it wasn't just me. The card was also reacting to my presence. It was moving, shifting, beckoning me closer. I didn't want to go, but I had no choice. It was as if the card had a mind of its own, guiding me towards my destiny. As I stepped through the portal, the world around me dissolved into a blinding white light. I screamed, my voice echoing through the void, but no one could hear me. I was alone, trapped in a never-ending tunnel of light. I had no idea where I was going or what awaited me on the other side. All I knew was that the card had taken me somewhere far away from home, far away from everything I had ever known. And as the light faded and the tunnel came to an end, I saw it. A world unlike my own, a world of magic and wonder, a world of danger and excitement. I had entered a realm where anything was possible, a realm where the rules of reality no longer applied. I had entered Wonderland.